What up, Wizards? It me, Dev, SBMTG, we like it at Magic, and today I have your favorite kind of content. We got spoilers already for Midnight Hunt. Don't worry, spoiler season hasn't started quite yet. This is just a little bit of an appetizer for Midnight Hunt that Wizards gave us. A little nosh that we can enjoy for the next couple of weeks until spoiler season actually starts. We got to see 5 or 6 cards. Can't remember who's counting yesterday. And I figured I'd get on here and talk about them in case you haven't seen them yet, or in case you want my take. I know there's like a good 15 or 16 of you out there who want my take. So let's get into it. Let's start with a good one. Let's look at Play with Fire. This is what happens when your mom says you have shock at home, but it turns out your mom is Mama Cherry from Season 2 of Kitchen Nightmares, and she can actually cook a little bit. It's just shock, just 1 red mana for an instant that deals 2 damage to a target. But some gravy, a little hollandaise on top. If a player is dealt damage this turn, this way, you scry 1. So that's sexy. Like, that's just better than shock. Strictly better, if you will, as a matter. That's why my channel is called that. It's because we sometimes say cards are strictly better. You learned something today. You also learned that this is just a better shock, and you should probably play it in your red decks. Likely. Is this better than Frostbite? Probably not. But if your red deck wants multiple copies beyond 4 of a card like Frostbite, then this is just better than Shock. And there are already people playing Shock and Frostbite in the same mono red decks. So I could see it happening. I mean, a scry in a mono red deck is actually kind of huge when you think about it. Especially in the kind of deck that might want this card. Scrying past that next land is actually a really big deal. So I do like the card. But there's more. There's more here. We got to look at Consider real quick, and I would like you to consider how good this card actually is. This is what happens when your dad says that you have Opt at home, but it turns out that your dad is Gordon Ramsay himself. This is just a blue mana for an instant. Look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard, draw a card. So instead of scrying, you get a Surveil, which I think is way better, like 99% of the time. Ironically, you kind of can't say this is strictly better, but again, like 99% of the time in practical application, this card's going to be better than Opt, because, you know, you have access to the cards in your graveyard in numerous ways. Or maybe you are trying to escape things in Historic or Modern or something, so this adds a card to your graveyard and draws you a card. So there's just all kinds of reasons why you might want cards in your graveyard. So again, most of the time, this is going to be an effectively upgraded Opt, which was already a playable card. But let's move it along to Join the Dance. This is what happens when your mom says that you have like Raise the Alarm or Lingering Souls at home, but your mom is your mom. This is just 2 mana, a green and a white for a sorcery. Create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens, and you can flash it back for a 3, a green, and a white. So 5 mana to flash this back. Again, that's not Lingering Souls. It's not even quite Raise the Alarm. I mean, this could get you 4 bodies, where Raise the Alarm only gets you 2 copies. Or 2 bodies per copy of the card. But Raise the Alarm's instant speed, and that's like great. And this is sorcery speed, harder to cast too, for what it's worth. Far fewer decks can play this card than a card like Raise the Alarm. So maybe I'm just like comparing it to cards, and that's not what I should be doing. I mean, if you just look at the card in a vacuum, 2 bodies for 2 mana in your tokens deck that then allows you to get back on board after a sweeper or something, even though it costs you so much mana. Like, in the upcoming format, one of my big problems with a card like this is that normally this Flashback would be pretty good, but in the upcoming format, you could use this 5 mana to activate a Lair of the Hydra, or a Faceless Haven, or Cave of the Frost Dragon, or like any other creature land that you have access to in this color combination, and that's usually, I think, going to be a better use of your mana. But I could be wrong. There could be like a dedicated tokens deck that this is a 4 of in, because it doesn't look like a terrible card. I just feel like when I A, compare it to other cards like it, and B, realize that there's probably better stuff you could be doing for 5 mana, even in your tokens deck, even if you draw dead. Again, creature lands are a thing. Then it really kind of downgrades the stock of this card. But again, in a vacuum, 4 bodies on 1 card is pretty good. Let's take a look at the one that everyone's talking about, whether they love it or they hate it. We got to check out Infernal Grasp. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black for an instant. Destroy target creature, you lose 2 life. Alright, so it's 100% unconditional. And it's instant speed, and it only costs 2, which is a great removal spell. I will see play in multiple formats, like Standard, Historic, Modern, and possibly beyond, because this might be actually one of the strongest removal spells ever printed. I hesitate to say, but like, it could be up there. It really could be like somewhere in the top 10 in terms of like best removal spells of all time. But hold your horses. I don't think that the end is here for creature decks or anything. As a matter of fact, I think that a lot of creature decks that are really low to the ground, these mono white decks, these mono red decks, these Boros decks that we see, they're going to be big in the next format. You know, especially the mono white decks. Probably don't care about this as much as you think they do because they can stack damage up pretty easily. And even if you do have the sweeper or whatever in control, they can finish you with a creature land too. So hitting yourself for 2 damage, basically turning every creature you target into a bone crusher giant, right? It kind of has ward 2 life. Actually might not be as good against really aggressive decks as you think. I think this is probably far better against, you know, mid-range decks that run a few key 5-drops. Right, but against a lot of the important creatures in the format, even some of the 5-drops, this isn't going to feel as good as you want it to. You know, Goldspan Dragon, they get a treasure and they hit you for 2. That sucks. You know, even all the way down to stuff like Eye Twitch, Shambling Ghast, the Skullport Merchant. A lot of these like smallish creatures that decks are playing, they all feel like fairly bad to target with this. Cards like Sedgemoor Witch, for instance, if the format warps around this card and people start playing, say, less Baleful Mastery and stuff like that, that could greatly benefit cards like Sedgemoor Witch, which effectively it costs 5 life to target with this spell. Think about that. But, you know, even things like Immersturm Predator, again, if people stop playing Baleful Mastery as often and they start playing this card more often, that opens up a spot in the format for a card like Immersturm Predator to come in and be like really, really good. So there are some sort of natural foils to this card's existence already in Standard. There aren't a whole lot, but we haven't seen this entire set. We've seen like 5 or 6 cards. So, you know, there might be more indestructible creatures that can counterplay against this kind of spell, or just aggressive strategies that can counterplay against this kind of spell to where like the 2 life actually hurts your opponent a lot. So I don't think that this is the end of the world or anything like that, but I do think that this is obviously an incredibly strong removal piece that'll see a good bit of play. But let's look at the cards that look either really good, like really stupid good from yesterday, or they have some sort of application that makes them really janky, and I'm very excited for them. So, of those 2 categories, let's look at the obviously competitively playable card first, because I'm somehow less excited about that, but I am really excited about Champion of the Parish, which is just the funniest joke. That's one of the best names in a while. In case you don't get the joke, it's Champion of the Parish. It's Champion of the Parish, and it might even, just based on the art and what he's wearing, I'm pretty sure it's literally the same guy, which is really funny too. But anyway, yeah, it's Champion of the Parish. It's literally the same card in terms of mana cost, except it's black instead of white. Stat line is the same, and they replaced the word human with zombie in the text box. That is pretty much it. But yeah, and whenever on your one drop, and again, in case you didn't experience how juiced Champion of the Parish was when it was a thing in Standard, this is a 1-drop that gets bigger on pretty much every turn of the game, and sometimes gets bigger by orders of magnitude. You know? And I want cards like Timuret Calls the Dead to be in Standard after rotation, even though they're not going to be. That would be so nice. I love the wording on this, just like Champion of the Parish. It's not non-token. It only triggers 1 time each turn like they've been doing lately for stuff. You know, no, you can have 3 zombies into the battlefield that turn, whether they're tokens or not, and this guy gets huge. So this is a good card. They have to print some zombie support for it, obviously. We actually lose some of the playable zombies in the format. But we still have a few playable zombies that we'll be left with. We even have a zombie anthem. It's a 4-drop. That kind of sucks, but still, we have a zombie anthem, so that's kind of nice. And if we get any like decent support, like a fine 2-drop, just a fine 2-drop. I think, is white a zombie? I think it is. So maybe we already have a fine 2-drop. God, can you imagine that? Because like it'll grow when you play the white. It'll grow when you get the 2/2 zombie when you know a creature that white damages goes to the graveyard. I need to check that out. It is a zombie. I had to just had to look it up to make sure. But yeah, actually it seems like it would play really good with a turn 2 white. But it's a good card. I'll have to play with it for a second to know that it's good, because we've kind of already played with it. Of course, will the zombie support be as strong as the human support was for Champion of the Parish is the real question here. And if it's anything like it was with Champion, this is probably going to be like one of, if not the best 1-drop zombie of all time, which I really hesitate to say. some pretty good one-drop zombies out there, but this could go on to be one of the most powerful creatures in the format if mono black aggro is a real deck. But next, let's take a look at Triskaidekaphile. This is the janky one, right? This is 2 mana, 1 and a blue. For a 1/3 human wizard, you have no maximum hand size. That's kind of nice. You can also pump 3 and a blue into it to just draw a card. It's actually kind of not bad already, but here's the cool part. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you just win. You just win. You just win the game. The cool thing about this, and I don't think enough people are talking about, honestly, is that it's kind of just like, fine. Without the win the game clause on it. I don't think you'd play it if it didn't have the win the game clause on it. But it does, and that makes it kind of powerful. I don't think that you're going to win the game off of it very much, don't get me wrong. We do have stuff in the format that could work with this, like Seagate Restoration draws a whole bunch of cards at one time, and there's some other things that'll draw, 3-4 cards. A Graven Lore draws 3 cards, so, there are some things that could help you get to that 13-card threshold, even at instant speed, which is kind of nice. So, I don't hate this. In terms of the alternate win con, I think that it's actually kind of possible, but what I like most about this is the 2 mana library of laying on a body that's also, what the heck is it called? Like Azure Mage or something like that? Am I right about it? Is it called Azure Mage? I don't remember. But yeah, it's like whatever I'm talking about here, I actually saw some sparing sideboard play back in the day because it was nice to have a body that could draw you cards for the same cost. I believe its activated ability costs 3 and a blue to draw a card. And that card saw sideboard play. And I think it may have actually cost more to cast than this, but I might be wrong on that. But either way, 3 and a blue, draw a card, is actually kind of a sweet activated ability. You got the same problems like, oh, do I just want to activate creature lands instead of doing this? But I think a lot of the time, it's going to be worth it to draw that card for 4 mana if you have nothing better to do. So, just really sweet. The no maximum hand size is kind of nice, too. Like, that's not bad. Like, it's just all around, the package isn't terrible. And most people are talking about the win the game thing. It's cool when you do win the game, but, I could see decks this could go in and just, you're not really building towards the win con. It's just kind of, it could incidentally possibly win you the game on occasion, but it doesn't have to because, just a thing that draws you cards and library of lings. That's, kind of a fine magic card on rate. But here's the last card of the day. Let's take a look at Wrenn and 7 here, kind of the nexus of jank and competitive playability. This is 5 mana, 3 and 2 green for a 5 loyalty planeswalker with the type Wrenn. And yeah, I skipped over this, but yes, the name is Wrenn and 7. There was Wrenn and 6, now there's a Wrenn and 7. Caption this. Just the +1 on this is to reveal the top 4 cards of your library and put all the land cards into your hand, the rest into your yard. The 0 on this is put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. For -3, you create a green treefolk creature token with reach and this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. And for -8, the ultimate is return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. So you kind of get like a Harness Infinity on the ultimate, which is nice. Matter of fact, that's the thing that everyone said about Harness Infinity is this is missing the line of text, you have no maximum hand size. Well, here. It's just the permanence. It doesn't give you all the cards back from your graveyard. So I guess that's probably worse than Harness a lot of the time. But still, Ultimate's cool. But the Ultimate is not why we talk about Planeswalkers. The best thing about this, I think from a competitive standpoint, is let's say you ramp it into play on turn 4. Well, that means that it is kind of a 5 mana 4/4 that leaves behind a 2 loyalty Planeswalker. And that's not a bad rate. Right? It's not only a 5, again, this example, you're ramping into play, I assume you have 4 lands. It'll grow into a 5/5 the next turn, a 6/6 the next turn. That is, again, if you have the lands to play. But it grows as the game goes on. So if your opponent takes out the creature, they still have the Wrenn to deal with, and you'll be plussing that, getting card advantage, a real card advantage off of that. I also like that the plus, by the way, puts the cards in your graveyard. It's a milkshake. So if you are playing some sort of Reanimator deck or a deck with Flashback, which again is confirmed to be in the set, then this ability gets really, actually quite good. It feels reminiscent of Mulch. As a matter of fact, it is just Mulch. Now, it's just the card Mulch is this thing's +1. And Mulch has seen competitive play, but that's because Mulch is a 2 mana card, whereas this costs 5 mana to get a Mulch, but it's a Mulch that leaves behind a 6 loyalty Planeswalker, which is good. So that's not too bad. The 0 I don't think is amazing, but 0s don't have to be amazing. And if you do drop this and you happen to have 2 lands in your hand or something the turn that you play it, it's entirely possible you elect to 0 it. And that way, your opponent has to deal with a 5 loyalty planeswalker. And if they can deal with a 5 loyalty planeswalker, it's still ramped you by 2. So it's kind of a migration path that they also, had to direct attacks at or take a spell out of their hand to deal with. So that's actually not, the 0 isn't terrible, but it's also very conditional. But that's what 0 should be. I still think the -3 is probably the best ability on this thing. Right, 5 mana to create a reasonably beefy creature. I mean, if you play it fairly, you get a 5/5 and a 2 loyalty planeswalker, which is great. Like, it's really good. And again, if the token lasts for more than a turn or 2, then it's going to get even bigger. And if you can create a second token with it, I don't want to say that you just win the game, because that's not necessarily so, but I think that your chances of winning the game dramatically increase if you can get 2 tokens out of this thing. So really actually like this card. I'm not sure how playable it's going to be in Standard, because I think that the way the meta looks will greatly impact whether or not this card is playable. But a 5 mana planeswalker with a reasonable loyalty and 3.5 like pretty good loyalty abilities is not bad. There's card advantage on it, and there's a way to protect itself. Those are the things I look for in a planeswalker. So if the format is a little bit more forgiving to these mid-range planeswalkers, and based on the knowledge we have of Standard 2022 on Arena, it does look like this is going to be a more planeswalker-centric kind of format. And this card could slot right into a number of decks. So I really like it, but I am sort of reserving judgment for now. Also forgot to mention that in the promo art, Wrenn is levitating a jack-o'-lantern, which is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I don't know why I like pumpkins so much. I didn't even know that about myself. But I do. I love jack-o'-lanterns, apparently. Everyone does, right? But I don't know. That's just really awesome to me. The set comes out around Halloween. The boosters look Halloween-y. They're like black and orange. Why couldn't I come up with the color orange for a second? But we've already seen a number of cards with pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns and scarecrows and all that. And I just really love that they're like leaning into the Halloween theme with the theme of this set. I love that. Halloween's my favorite holiday by like an enormous margin. There's just kind of no other holiday that I really enjoy other than Halloween. So I just really love that they're playing up the Halloween angle with the set. But anyway, that's all the cards for now. It's probably going to be a week or 2 before spoiler season really starts. But as far as like an initial push of cards to get you excited for a set, this is some pretty good stuff. So, let me know how you felt about all this down there in the comments section. Any interactions that I missed or screwed up on. It's never too early in spoiler season to make mistakes as a content creator, so let me know anything that I screwed up on down there, or interactions that you're excited about that I may not have brought up. But aside from that, like the video, subscribe for more spoiler content, because it's going to be spoiler season soon, amazingly. We're almost there. So subscribe for more content. Make sure that you actually get the spoilers in your recommended feed when they drop. Aside from that, check out all this stuff. You want to see me play some Magic or maybe talk these spoilers. If you followed me on Twitch, you would have gotten to hear me talk about these spoilers a full 24 hours in advance, because I talked about it on stream last night. So follow me on Twitch for stuff. Support me on Patreon if you want to see the channel do better, and just make sure I can pay my rent and keep doing this. Support me on Patreon, $1 a month to vote on content, and then follow me on Twitter, because that was actually the first place that I talked about these cards. Yeah, so content is on these other things, so go check those out. But I guess I'm done. I gotta edit this video and actually get it out before midnight. So I love you guys. I'll catch you guys later. I'm Deb from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.